Angelica colors in a not-so-grim fairy tales coloring book. When she colors in the queen's dress, she messes up when Drew calls for her and blames it on Cynthia. She then decides that a creative girl like her doesn't need to color inside the lines and decides to make the page nighttime by coloring it all black. When Drew walks into Angelica's bedroom to ask how her cleanup is going, he's shocked to find it still messy. When Angelica tries to show her daddy the picture she colored, Drew reminds her they made a deal. He promised to buy her a $400 video game system under the condition that she clean up her room once a month. Angelica says she doesn't feel like cleaning this month. Drew scolds Angelica, telling her that whether or not she feels like it, she has to clean her room. Angelica tells him she'll clean her room starting next month. Upon hearing this, Drew tells his daughter he's not going to put up with her selfish behavior this time. He's going to talk to Charlotte about it. As he leaves, Angelica follows him. In her office, Charlotte is on the treadmill talking to Jonathan, telling him that she wants her fax money repaired today, as it may be Sunday in America, but it's Monday in Tokyo, and they can bet the people they aren't lazy. As she watches to the end of a soap opera, a commercial for the Home Office King airs. In the commercial, Sal Fusco, the Home Office King, claims he can fix anything from toasters to TV sets to fax machines that'll treat his customers like royalty. Upon seeing the commercial, Charlotte tells Jonathan to call the Home Office King. Drew walks in, but before he can talk, Charlotte asks him why it's so hard to get your fax machine repaired nowadays. Drew tells Charlotte that he wants to talk to her about Angelica. As Charlotte states that Angelica is their little princess, Angelica eavesdrops on her parents' conversation. Unbeknownst to them, Drew asks Charlotte if she's aware that lately, Angelica has been acting as if she were a real princess. Angelica overhears and is under the impression that she is a real princess, and her parents are her wicked step-parents. Charlotte misunderstands Drew and is impressed when she hears what he said. Drew asks her why, and Charlotte tells him that if Angelica is ever going to make it in a male-dominated power structure, she has to eat, breathe, drink, and sweat self-esteem. Drew informs Charlotte that as much as they've been blessed with a daughter like Angelica, they have to stop spoiling her, or she might suspect she really is a princess. Angelica is excited upon hearing this and is eager to tell the babies. Later that day, when Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil come to visit Angelica, Tommy asks Angelica if she really is a real princess. Angelica assures him that's what she heard from Drew and Charlotte, and that it was really a secret she wasn't supposed to find out. Chucky starts to question whether Angelica is really a princess, as she doesn't have a crown. Phil asks Angelica why she doesn't live in a castle. Lil asks why Drew and Charlotte aren't a king and a queen. Angelica tells Lil that Drew and Charlotte aren't her real parents, rather they're her wicked step-parents. Tommy then asks Angelica if that means he really isn't her cousin. Angelica tells him that he's just a simple pheasant, much to his disappointment. Angelica tells the babies that her real parents are a king and a queen who'd never yell at her, make her put away her toys, or do anything mean to her at all. Chucky asks Angelica how he and his friends would know if she really were a princess. Tommy looks over Angelica's coloring book and gets an idea. We could do a test to see if Angelica is an actual princess. He says the first test would be the Princess Rapunzel test. Chucky asks him what that is, and Tommy explains that if Angelica is a real princess, then she'd be able to climb up her hair. Angelica starts to question Tommy's idea, but Tommy says that Princess Rapunzel had a prince climb up her hair by her practically every night. He tells her it's the only way they'll know for sure, and Angelica reluctantly decides to let Phil and Lil climb up her hair. Phil asks Angelica if he's sure she won't get mad, and Angelica assures her she won't. She then tells the twins to climb up her hair. Phil and Lil try to do so, but Angelica's in great pain and tells them to let go. They do so, and Angelica falls over. She then scolds Phil and Lil, telling them that what they're doing is no way to treat a princess. Angelica decides to try another test, where she stacks a bunch of folded blankets on top of her head. This is called the Princess and the Pea test, and she'll test if she's a real princess for sure. She explains to Tommy, Phil, and Lil that a real princess's skin is so soft they can feel a pea through many blankets. Lil tells Angelica she can feel one Phil pees through many blankets and asks her if it makes her a real princess. Angelica tells them it doesn't, but rather makes them both disgusting. Chucky walks in, and Angelica asks him where the pea she asked him to get for her is. Chucky tells her that he got hungry on the way upstairs, so he ate it, but he does have something suitable for the pea, a fork he found on the kitchen floor. He asks if this will work, and Angelica, deciding it will have to do, takes it from him. Angelica puts the fork under the many blankets and attempts to climb to the top, but the blankets fall on top of her and she falls off the bed. The babies all laugh, and Tommy tells Angelica, she passed the test, all without having to make it to the top, as the fork still hurt. Chucky denies that Angelica passed the test, as they didn't use a real P. This disappoints Lil, who complains that they'll never know whether or not Angelica is a real princess. Angelica looks through her coloring book and decides to do one more test. She then walks up to Chucky and tells him not to eat any part of it. Angelica's new test is the Cinderella test. If the slipper she brought fits on her foot, she's a real princess. She asks Tommy to bring her a slipper, and Tommy brings her a pair of reindeer slippers. She asks Tommy to put them on her, and he does so. To Angelica's delight, the slippers fit. Tommy exclaims that Angelica's a real princess after all. Angelica tells the baby she hopes they're satisfied. Chucky then apologizes for him and his friends ever doubting her. Angelica tells Chucky that she forgives him and decides to let him be her royal footman. Chucky thanks Angelica and asks her what he can do for her first. Angelica then tells him to take her slippers off, which he does. A few minutes later, Angelica commands the babies to help her pack her bags, as her real dad, the king, will be at her house any minute to rescue her from her wicked step-parents and take her to his castle. After Chucky helps Angelica pack her bag, she tells him, Tommy, Phil, and Lil to follow her so they can wait for the king to arrive. Chucky follows her, pulling the heavy full bag. Downstairs, Tommy asks Angelica if she'd like a lollipop while she waits for the king, and Angelica thanks him for it. Phil looks out the window and asks Angelica where the king is. Angelica says not to worry, as he'll be over at her house at any minute. When Angelica finishes her lollipop, she assures the babies that the king will be over at any minute and discards the stick into an ashtray. Many lollipops later, the king has none arrived, much to Angelica's disappointment. She begins to lose hope and tells the babies that the king isn't coming after all, and he's just going to leave her in a house with her wicked step-parents who make her clean up her bedroom, brush her teeth, never have any fun. Phil and Lil feel sorry for Angelica and tell her the king must have forgotten about her. Chucky says the king and queen must have had a revolution. Tommy tells everyone the king didn't forget about Angelica and asks Angelica if she's a real princess. Angelica reluctantly tells him she is. Tommy tells her that he has heard enough fairy tales to know, as he tells her the princesses might be taken away from their real parents, live with evil step-parents, and made to clean up their toys. Sal Fusco parks his home office king truck in Angelica's driveway. Tommy then tells Angelica that whenever a princess is in trouble, sooner or later, the king does come to rescue her. He assures her she will be rescued too. Angelica tells Tommy she'd like to believe in him, but he's just a baby, and she's doomed to live the rest of her life with a bunch of ordinary people. The doorbell rings, and Chucky points out the window. To Angelica's delight, the home office king is in her driveway. Lil is impressed with the truck, as is Phil, who notices the crown on top. Charlotte opens the door, and Sal asks her if she's Mrs. Pickles. Charlotte affirms this and asks him if he is the home office king. Sal assures her he is and asks her where her fax machine is. Charlotte decides to lead him to her office. Angelica points to Sal and excitedly tells the babies he's the king. Chucky tells Angelica he isn't sure, as Sal doesn't look much like a king. Lil asks Angelica where Sal's crown is, and Phil asks her where his robe is. Angelica tells the babies that Sal's in disguise, so he can go wherever he wants and no one will suspect he's really the king. She then tells the babies to help her pack her things into his truck. Tommy asks Angelica if she's really leaving. Angelica assures him she is, as she's going to live at the king's palace. Chucky asks Angelica if she wants to say goodbye to Drew and Charlotte before she leaves. Angelica tells him she's not going to, as they never let her do anything fun. She then calls the babies over to help her get her stuff packed while she can still leave. Angelica looks into the dining room, and when she sees the coast is clear, she signals the babies to follow her. They do so while pulling her heavy, full bag. Angelica then opens the door to her driveway, runs out, and opens the back door of Sal's truck. The babies all think the inside looks very fancy, and Angelica says only the king brings the best for the princess. She asks the babies to help her inside. Tommy and Chucky do so, and Phil asks Angelica if they can visit the palace and play with all her diamonds and furs. Phil asks if they can ride on the royal ponies, and Chucky asks if they can watch royal television. Angelica tells them that the stuff is only for princesses, but they can have her old bedroom with all her old toys in it. The babies are impressed and thank her for it. But Angelica tells them that the one condition is they have to clean it up once a month. She then tells them to leave before somebody sees them, and she gets caught, then closes the back doors. Tommy then calls for Angelica, who opens the door and tells him to leave so she won't get caught. Tommy tells Angelica he'll miss her, and Chucky, Phil, and Lil tell her the same. Angelica informs the babies that maybe someday they can visit her at the palace. She then tells them to kneel down. Chucky, fearing the worst, objects to this. Angelica explains that she wants to knight him, Tommy, Phil, and Lil. Chucky says that he's afraid of the dark, but she tells him that she means night, as in make the babies important people. Asks Angelica if she means like princesses, and Angelica tells her not quite, but close. She tells the babies to kneel, which they do so, and she names them Sir Phil, eater of earthworms, Lady Lil, loudest screamer in the land, Sir Charles, fraidy cat extraordinaire, and Sir Thomas, the bravest baby of them all. Tommy is impressed and thanks Angelica. Angelica tells Tommy she enjoyed knitting them and it's time for her to leave. She closes the back door and says goodbye to the babies. They all say goodbye back to her, and Tommy tells her to write them a postcard when she learns to write. Angelica says she will. Tommy tells his friend that Angelica is the princess of leaving them. Then he overhears Charlotte, who is outraged that she has to pay Sal $100. The babies all hide in the bushes as Sal walks out to his truck and assures Charlotte she's paying for equality. Charlotte is outraged that he charges a fortune just to have him look at her fax machine. Angelica is satisfied that her plan to escape from her parents worked. From now on, she'll live in the princess life. Nothing but video games, ponies, and chocolate chip cookies. As Sal boards his truck, Charlotte angrily tells him to get her fax machine fixed by tomorrow morning, as that is her deadline. Sal assures her that he will and drives away. As Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil peek out from under the bushes, Tommy is surprised that Angelica has already left, and Chucky hopes she'll be happy with King Sal. Phil and Lil then decide to go up to Angelica's bedroom to play with her toys. Inside Sal's truck, Angelica talks to Cynthia about her new life in Sal's palace, how she'll be sitting on her throne reading comic books all day long. Best of all, she won't ever have to see Drew or Charlotte ever again. Angelica then asks Cynthia why she'd miss them, and as all they ever did was make her clean up her room. She then remembers the good things they did for her, like read her bedtime stories, kiss her goodnight, and take care of her when she's sick. Angelica then realizes she made a terrible mistake leaving them and asks Cynthia what she could do. Angelica then decides to take Cynthia's advice, and she bangs on the wall of the front of the truck and calls for Sal to take her back home. When she gets back to her house, Angelica tells Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil that the things at the castle got boring for her and she decided to come back to her house. Tommy asks Angelica if she's still a real princess, and she whispers to him not to tell anyone. Charlotte thanks Sal for bringing Angelica home and apologizes for any trouble she might have caused. Sal tells her it's no trouble at all, because when you spend so much time around home office equipment, you learn a few things about kids. He then tells her about the fax machine wasn't broken at all, it just needed a new roll of paper. Charlotte is embarrassed upon hearing this, but Sal still charges her $100, much to her shock. Angelica runs to Drew and hugs him, telling him he's the best dad a girl could ask for. Drew tells her he's the sweetest little princess. Angelica then asks Drew if he could do her a favor. He asks her what it is. Angelica tells him not to call her princess.